everyone, so this video is going to be about revision techniques. I know this channel is meant for beauty stuff, but I know a lot of my subscribers are at that age where they are sitting exams, either GCSEs or A-levels, or if you're at uni or if you're in another country, kind of the equivalent of those. So I just thought I'd share with you what I've found helps in terms of revision. I've done quite a lot of exams. I'm in my final year at uni now, so just stuff that's helped me get good grades through GCSEs and A-levels and stuff. Yeah, so the first and most important thing about revision is organisation. Like, I can't stress this enough. The first thing that I do when I sit down to revise is make sure that all of my notes are in order. Now, I kind of do this throughout the year anyway, just so that it makes it easier. But if you haven't been keeping your notes in good order throughout the year, then just go back through them and sort everything into individual topic sections. So I'll just show you the way that I keep my notes. For each, I do 4 modules at uni, so for each module, or for each subject if you're still at school, like biology, whatever, I keep them in these fold out files that have individual individual sections for each little mini topic. So I mean, you can keep them in a ring binder folder, but I find this better if you have quite a lot of different subjects within one topic. So anyway, I just go through this and make sure everything is kind of in its place, and make sure that I'm not missing anything as well. So if you've missed lectures or missed a class, if you go to your friends and copy their notes or ask the teacher to give you notes or whatever, so just make sure everything's complete and everything's in order. Okay, so the second thing you want to do is look at past papers. This is another thing that I just can't stress enough. Literally, past papers help me so much. If your school doesn't give them to you as standard, I know that some schools do. My school certainly did, and my university do. They're available online. Sometimes you'll be able to find them through your individual exam board website. They might provide them for you. Some revision guides have them in them as well, and revision guides is another thing. They are really, really useful, especially if you're doing GCSEs and A-level to some extent. They can be amazing. When I did GCSEs, I had some fabulous ones that literally just summarised everything perfectly, and you just learnt it and went into the exam. But you've got to be very careful that you get exactly the right one for your exam board, because they are so varied. So basically, with past papers, the examiners pretty much set the same questions year after year after year, and this is especially relevant if you're doing something like science. In biology, for example, they set this very, very similar questions year after year. So if you can get, I say the optimum is 4, but sometimes they do change over time, but if you can get hold of 4 past papers and just look through them and notice any patterns in the questions, then you've got kind of your ideal situation right there set out for you, easy. So if you go through them, you pick out which topics are coming up year after year after year, and then you've got your topics that you want to revise. So that's also a good way to divide up your work. If you can see clear sections, oh, this is about social impacts of this one thing, this is about economic impacts, things like that. If you can divide everything up into manageable sections, then it will help your revision so much. Okay, the next thing that is important is to manage your time. Make a revision timetable, work out how much work you've got to do, how much time you've got to do it in, and divide it up. The amount of time that you need to revise depends exactly on how much time you have to revise. Some people will have 2 months, some people have 1 month, some people have 3 weeks, whatever, but use as much time as you have. Make sure you have an individual topic set out for each day. What I do is I set a goal for each day, and don't make it too much. Don't make it so you're stressed. Make it so that you have time to have a break, to go and have lunch and not think about things, because it's really important not to overwork yourself, otherwise you just won't remember. It's too much information. Okay, so the next thing is make sure you've got some good kit to help you revise. What I find really useful are these pucker pad project books. This one's an A5 one, you can get them in A4, but you can get these in Tesco's, probably in WH Smith. I think these are about £2.50 and the big ones are about £3. And they just have dividers, and they have little slots so you can just find something that you want to contain all your revision in and find a way to organise it when you're doing it. So I find this really useful, and I also find highlighters massively useful. Don't just start with a piece of paper and a pen. Try and organise it in a way that will help you break everything down. Okay, so first of all, I go through either your class notes or your lecture notes, and you want to take basic notes. You want to kind of simplify everything down. Make sure that you understand everything. Don't take notes if If you're reading through your notes and you're like, I don't really understand that, but you write it in your revision notes anyway, don't do that. If you don't understand something, don't write it down, or go and learn about it and find out what it means. Because if you're learning something you don't understand, you're likely to make a mistake in the exam and just mess it up. So don't do that. The next tip I have for you guys is to expand your knowledge from those basic notes. So this is more relevant for university people, but if you are, say, doing a course that has a lot of reading, try not to stick to the recommended reading. Do the basic reading, but if you stick to that and do nothing more, you're never going to get a really good grade, because your answer won't be different from anyone else's. If you go outside the box and bring in your own experiences or extra reading that you've done or a website that you found that has interesting information, you're going to get extra marks because it's something that other people don't have. If you're doing something that's social science based, like geography or economics, business studies, A-level, things like that, make sure you get as many case studies that you can and just list them, try and remember them, even if it's just basic words that help you remember. It's all part of like expanding your knowledge so that you can give a better answer than other people. Another tip that I have is to share the work. If you have friends that are doing the same topic as you, it really helps if you have a ton of reading to split the reading in half and make summaries. Summaries are another great way actually of using your laptop. I do this throughout the year as well. I find the best way to actually get the most out of reading an article is to try and just keep the notes to one A4 page, and then when it comes to revision, you can print off all the readings about that subject you have, and they're all on one sheet of A4 paper. So you can just flick through and just like relearn everything. If you're going through huge amounts of notes and if they're handwritten, it often gets confusing and you kind of lose where you are. Okay, so the next thing I do after I've done that is I make mind maps. This is one tip that teachers always tell you at school that actually really works for me. Mind maps are basically, I'll show you an example of mine. This is kind of what my normal ones will look like, which this is like really crammed in. But say if you're doing a smaller topic and there's not so much stuff, it might look something like that. I know this has got a big gap, I haven't finished this yet. Obviously this works better for some people than other people. The way you remember things depends totally on how your mind works. But if you remember things in a more photographic way, not necessarily having like an actual photographic memory, but actually just that's how you learn. If you find it easy to learn things from, say, watching a film or whatever, then mind maps are a really good way of organising your thoughts so that when you go into the exam you just don't panic and you think about everything that you know and where it was on that sheet of paper. And even if you just remember one person's name, you think, oh, you know, he did this research on that, I'll write about him. So that's a really useful thing to do as well. Another really important thing to do when you're revising is take breaks. If you don't take a break, if you're working from like 8 AM to lunchtime straight, your brain is just going to be frazzled. What I try to do is every 45 minutes or every hour just take a 5-minute break. You kind of get into a cycle and you learn like when your mind starts switching off. Don't try and force yourself to do more work because it just won't go in and you won't remember it. You're better off taking a break, having a cup of tea or going outside if it's sunny and just chilling out for 5 or 10 minutes and then coming back in and starting again. So make sure you give yourself a break. Okay, so actually talking about the exam, if you guys are sitting your first exam, if you're doing GCSEs or whatever, important things to take in with you. Highlighter so that you can highlight parts of the question. I find the best way is to highlight the keywords just so that you don't lose track. Say if you're writing an essay and you're going to be writing for 45 minutes, by the time you get halfway through, you might kind of have deviated from what you're meant to be talking about. So a really good thing here is to take highlighter and highlight the keywords so that you remember throughout what you're meant to be talking about. Other things to take in, obviously, if you're doing maths or whatever, you need your calculator kit, blah blah blah. You get told all that before you go in. My hands look huge in this video. It's because they're in front of me. Honestly, I don't have big hands, but look at that, they look crazy. Anyway, okay, so another thing I like to take, this is personal preference, and I've only learnt it in the last 2 or 3 years, is earplugs. I get really distracted by other people. If you are sitting in an exam room and there's someone, the worst last year, there was a girl who was constantly sniffing, she was putting her hand up, she was asking to go to the loo, her pen was rattling, she was changing her... Literally, if there's people sitting next to you that are making so much noise that you can't concentrate, you're not going to do your best. So take earplugs in with you, even if you don't have to use them. They're like £1 from Superdrug or wherever. Take a pair in and seriously, you will be so happy. If you're sitting next to somebody who is a noisy person, you'll be so happy that you took them in because you kind of... you can concentrate so much better if you're in your own world and there's no one next to you distracting you. Other things about the exam, don't take too many notes with you on the morning of the exam. If you take like your whole book of notes, you're suddenly going to look at it and be like, oh my god, I don't know that, oh my god, I don't know that. If you really want to take something with you, take like a mind map, or take 2 or 3 of these, and on your way, if you've got a journey on your way to school or uni or wherever to take your exam, you can look through that. Don't take a huge book, because you'll just freak yourself out. Another thing as well is don't talk to other people about what they know 5 minutes before the exam. If you want to kind of interact with your friends and say, oh, you know, what are you learning? Do that before the exam. If you show up on the day of the exam and you're like, oh, have you learnt this? And they'll be like, oh yeah, well, did you know, learn what this person said, and you've never even heard of that person? It freaks you out. And I've been in that situation where I've thought, oh my god, I don't know anything, and it kind of like makes you panicky for the exam and you won't do your best. So the best thing is just to kind of keep it chilled. Before you go into the exam, have a chat to your friends about other stuff, just to take your mind off it. You're not going to forget everything if you don't talk about it 2 seconds before you do it. It's better to have a break from thinking about it and actually then go in and start the exam on a kind of fresh note in your mind. Another thing that really bugs me as well is talking about the exam after it's happened. If you don't think you've done your best in an exam, don't worry about it. Some of my friends at school used to get so het up about thinking that they'd done badly, when really worrying about it would probably make them do worse in their next exam, because they'd just get stressed about it, and then, you know, if they had an exam the next day, they wouldn't be working so efficiently. So once the exam's done, forget it. Out of your mind, on to the next one, or celebrate, have fun. There's nothing you can do. If you've done badly, you'll get the grades. Oh dear, you know, you might have to retake, but there's nothing you can do after the exam, so don't, like, beat yourself up about it. So just to recap, the first thing, and most importantly, is to organise yourself. Organise your time, organise your notes, organise how you're going to revise, where you're going to revise. It's so important. Otherwise you'll just end up in a muddle and you'll probably get stressed out. The second thing is try and find past papers. If you can beg, steal or borrow them from anyone, most schools will give them to you as mock exams or whatever. Just use past papers, because they are your best resource. They are the best thing. They're going to tell you what's going to be in the exams, how it's going to be written, how much of each topic is going to be there, etc. The third thing is have time to relax. Don't stress yourself out. And the fourth thing is just be calm in exams. Don't stress out. Try and relax and you'll do your best. So yeah, I hope this has helped some of you if you've got exams coming up soon. I better get back to revision. I hope this has helped you, and good luck with all your exams, everyone. Bye!